Huddle Up with Gus is partnered with and distributed by TribLive.com. TribLive.com is your source for local news in Western Pennsylvania. Get breaking news and the best sports commentary around from Tim Benz, Mark Madden, Kevin Gorman, and more online at TribLive.com. You may know him from the Robert Morris Ice Rink on Neville Island, or you may have been a fan of his during his many years of playing professional hockey. But chances are you recognize him from this 1970s cult classic, Slapshot. One of the movie's foil-loving, hard-hitting Hanson Brothers. Please welcome to the Huddle, Dave Hanson.
All right, welcome to Huddle Up with Gus. We're here today. This is our 10th episode. We're pretty excited to have a special guest on today, Dave Hanson. As you guys probably know him from a very famous sports movie, but I'm so excited to hear his story and hear about how sports shaped his life and all the transition he's gone through. So, Dave, thanks for joining us today here on Huddle Up.
Oh, it's great. Look forward to it.
Yeah, so what we try to do is really go through your life story and how sports affected you and where you are today with it. We've had CEOs, Kevin Rabbit from NEP, we've had former athletes, everybody on. So I'm really excited.
I ran out of people and not anybody.
No, you're our first hockey. I'm a huge hockey fan. I have a lot of friends who've played. When I was in St. Louis, Keith Kachuk, Billy Guerin, Doug Waite were some of my good friends, and we all kind of left St. Louis.
Boys.
Yeah. So, well, I do have a little Canadian in me, but yeah. My family's I have a lot of family in Saskatoon.
Oh, yeah.
But I try not to go up there. It gets kind of cold.
Yeah, right.
But, so, one of the things we always start with is about when you were a kid, really what influenced you. I mean, I lived in Minnesota for 4 years and understand what the lakes are like. And when they're freezing and the kids are out on them, it's a special thing to watch. But, how did you get started? Was it your father? Was it a brother? How did you get started playing?
It was the neighborhood. We lived in a neighborhood that had a playground, and it was run by the city of St. Paul. And every winter, the city would come out and they'd plow off the fields, and we had this crusty old guy named Bill that'd go out there with the big fire hose and he'd flood the fields. And then they would put up dasher boards and create a hockey rink. So you had one big, where the baseball field and part of the football field was a big open skate area in flood.
Yeah.
And then tucked over in the corner, you had the dasher boards. And literally it was your typical sandlot type activity and atmosphere where everybody in the neighborhood, everybody skated. They go down and skate, and you'd pick up a hockey stick if you wanted to play hockey, and you play with kids from beginners to high school kids, and everybody found a way to play with each other. And if a little fisticuff broke out, you're fine. You didn't have parents on the sideboards yelling and screaming, and you'd settle it and it'd be over with. And that was kind of the start. That's what we did every day through the winter months, which are pretty long in Minnesota.
That's the way we did it too. When you played, you went out and you put your bikes out for your football field or whatever it was, and you settled things on your own, and you were still friends afterwards, and you kept the parents out of it. So was that, you kind of were in the neighborhood. Was your dad a hockey player?
No, my dad wasn't. He was a farm boy out of Wisconsin, and back up there, those farm boys played baseball and football and basketball, back in there at those times. But it was kind of one of those things where, as a youth growing up, and especially in St. Paul or Minnesota, you pretty much had, even though you had 4 seasons, you had 3 season sports. You had baseball, football, and hockey. And that's what we did. We would play hockey in the winter and we'd skate. And then in the summertime, you had a neighborhood booster club, which was the merchants that would get together and through the playgrounds, and we'd play football or we'd play baseball. So it was really kind of, my youth was not organized hockey. It was more organized football and baseball. And then as we got a little older and started getting towards the high school times, which 6th, 7th, 8th grade, then you started playing more organized sports, which was still community run.
Right.
And then once we got into high school, then you were playing your high school organized sports.
That's what's great about youth is that today it's all organized.
Yeah.
But when we grew up, so much of my youth was unorganized. Just going and getting your buddies. And it's not like that today, and it drives me crazy.
And that's how you learn. You learn the things that you don't learn in a structured practice, every day, organized, parents in the stands, this and that. You don't learn a lot of those life skills at an early age that helps you become good teammates and become competitive and understand, what it means to just get a bunch of guys together and play for the fun of it and not have to worry about, parents screaming in the stands or,
right.
Coaches going wacko on the benches.
Yeah, so then you played all three sports growing up.
Yeah.
I played everything too.
Yeah.
And then as you got older, I know a lot of the kind of hockey, they kind of fade away and they just stick to hockey. So when was that transition for you of saying, I'm not going to play these other ones and stick to hockey?
That happened after I graduated.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because actually, again, back then, your seasons were your sports seasons were your sports seasons.
Yeah.
And I played baseball. By the time I got into 9th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade, I went from being a running track and wrestling and playing football, baseball, hockey to a 3-sport. You had to finally isolate. Yeah. And actually, hockey, of all things, even though we had long winters and you skated a lot, I thought I was moving on to play collegiate football. That's where.
Really?
I had a couple opportunities to go on and play, collegiate football. As things would work out, the spring season, you got the fall football, winter, and spring, and we graduated in the spring, of course, from high school. Well, spring baseball, I ended up tearing up my ankle, sliding into second base.
Oh, yeah.
So my ability to run was hampered, that kind of held me back from moving on to football. And so I just kind of ended up naturally going towards hockey, and Herbie Brooks at the University of Minnesota recruited me, and among other schools, fortunately, but to play for Herbie Brooks and to play for the Gophers.
That would have been great, yeah.
Kid's dream in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And so I went in that direction.
So then you play all these sports. Did you kind of know where you were going to go to high school?
Well, yeah, we were right in our side
Everybody.
of the town was the west side of St. Paul, and the high school was, the city school was Humboldt, and everybody on the west side went to Humboldt. Yeah.
How big was Humboldt?
I think my graduation class was less than 200 kids.
No, so it wasn't huge.
It wasn't huge. No, actually, we were probably one of the smaller city schools in the St. Paul City Conference.
Yeah.
We'd play against the big schools, Harding, Johnson, who, when you played football, they had a special team. They had a separate offense, separate defense, separate special teams, this and that. Our football team, everybody played both ways.
Yeah, when I played in high school, we had, my junior year we had 18, my senior year we had 19 on my team. Well, on my football team, yeah, so it wasn't very big. So you never left the field, which I loved it.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you're there, you might as well play.
Yeah.
So you go to Humboldt, you played 3 sports, you played baseball, basketball,
football,
and hockey. Now, what was that really like when you transitioned between all those sports? For me, it was like, man, I just had fun in football, then I was going to basketball and baseball. How was that for you? Because I know a lot of kids go through that, and they have to go from playing a sport that they really like to one they may not like, but they really enjoy, they want to stay active. And now it's even getting worse. Kids are only playing one sport.
Yeah, and
but
playing it year-round.
Yeah, and playing it year-round. They got to get burnt out.
Yeah, burn out, injured more often, right?
Yeah, why do you think that is?
Well, I think, like you're a multi-sport athlete, and the muscle groups that you're using for one sport aren't necessarily the same muscle groups or predominant muscle groups you use for another sport. So I think it helped you just physically develop all your muscles to be able to work instead of, for example, only playing hockey and suddenly, you're pulling abductors and groins all the time because there's so much stress on it, and you don't have the other supporting muscles there that you acquire by playing football or baseball. Right. So, I think that's one of the biggest problems in the young athletes today is the injuries increase because of those issues.
I see that like in all sports, but my son Gabe, his best friend from high school, when we lived in St. Louis, Luke Martin, he went on to play, he left in after his 8th grade year and went to live with a family, and they lived in Michigan, and he was only playing hockey.
Yeah,
It wasn't.
typical path nowadays for kids.
Yeah, that is great. And you would, how do you feel about it? Like, I still think the kids should enjoy high school and do it all, and they're gonna find their path no matter what. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
Yeah, my son left Pittsburgh his senior year of high school because he was at the point where the hockey here in this area wasn't enough to continue to allow him to progress at a maybe level. But after that point, he could have left earlier. But we just felt as a family, you need to not only enjoy the sport you're playing, but you need other aspects of your life, right? You need to have your friends, I mean, he would miss the City Hawk and dances and the prom and stuff like that because hockey is often a role playing, on a weekend or something. But, you got to have your friends and you got to grow up with your family. And I think that's so important in helping to raise a well-rounded child, and move them on. But, if they get to the point where they want to move on, and if you don't have the amenities and everything you need in your area to do that, then you move on. But I see what you're talking about. There's some parents that just think it's not good enough here. We got to send them to Detroit.
Right.
We got to send them, to Toronto or London or somewhere.
Well, even like here in Pittsburgh, right? They want to send them to a better school. And I'm always like, if your son is good, if your daughter is good, they're going to find you.
You'll find your way.
Yeah. I mean, I went to a small school, Ford City, it was AA, and I remember my coach sent out a couple VHS tapes, and I went to Joe Butler Metro Index football camp.
And that was the only way I was recognized, but if you're good, they're going to find you.
Well, it's so competitive now. That's the other issue. There's so much and so competitive. Everybody thinks they got to get the extra edge. But you're right. If you're good enough, and you have, you got some of the natural God-given abilities and the physical abilities and the mental capabilities, and you need some development, you'll find other ways, but you can do that at home.
So how did so you played 3 sports. What was your greatest high school experience? Like, you played multiple sports. Did you win any championships?
No, we were a small school. We, like I said, every kid, we didn't have enough players to have a couple of different squads. We had one squad, everybody played both ways. So it was, we were always middle of the pack. In football, we were able to compete against the big schools, but we wouldn't win.
What position did you play in football?
I was a running back and a linebacker.
Which one do you like better? Offensive
running
defense?
back, yeah.
You like running back better?
Yeah, but I was, because we ran the single wing, right?
Yeah.
We were the only school, in 1972 to be running probably in the nation to run a single wing. And there was no finesse about me. We just did off right tap, and I just put my head down, pushed the guy in front of me, and just plow through it.
Yeah, I ran the Delaware wing T in high school. That was old school, and we never ran shotgun. I got to college, I'm like, what is this?
Oh, geez.
It was always under
Big
center.
difference.
And but single wing's a good offense. It's kind of it's similar, but you're doing a little more out of shotgun things.
Yeah,
But
that was cool. I love it. But so there was no real great highlights. Played against some great ball players, which were kind of cool. I mean, Ollie Bach, you know who Ollie Bach was.
Yeah.
He was with the Vikings for actually went up to Canada, I think, and played a little bit too. So I played against Ollie, and there's another great example. Ollie, huge football player, but also he was a goaltender in hockey. Played against him in high school hockey, and he played first base in baseball.
Yeah, so he was flexible.
He was flexible, but he was a man among boys, But and Dave Winfield played against Dave, in high school, and
amazing.
Talk about intimidating. He was a pitcher then too.
So, was he really?
Yeah. So
he's a big guy.
You see that big foot coming off. He's like, oh my God, he's going to step on my head, and as his foot landed, all of a sudden the ball was by your nose.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, at least I didn't see it, so I didn't have to worry about bailing out.
So. Did you get recruited for other sports?
I did. I got recruited for football and then recruited for hockey. I wasn't that good a baseball player, but so I thought I was going off to Mexico to play football at the University of New Mexico, and then, like I said, things worked out and I ended up going and playing hockey. Yeah,
you wanted to stay in the cold. You didn't want to go down that warm, down the south and warm stuff. So, all right. So now you just kind of said. Herb recruited you, and you said, I'm going there. Did you look at any other schools?
Yeah, I was being recruited by Wisconsin. You know, another go play for the Badgers. You know, another huge draw, and then a lot of D3 schools. But the D1s was Minnesota, Wisconsin, and I think Colorado, if I recall. But,
yeah. Well, Colorado wouldn't have been up there in hockey, would they?
Well, yeah.
They were pretty good then.
Yeah, they had a Division I program. They were good. But yeah, the two monsters were Minnesota and Wisconsin.
Yeah. And then you played. How many years were you in college? Did you?
With Herbie, I spent a year and a half. I wasn't good enough to make the varsity. I was impatient, you know, an 18-year-old kid. And so I spent a year there, didn't make the varsity team, played. They had a JV team. And so here I am, you know, big aspirations with big Gophers logo on my chest, and I'm playing against senior men's league out of South St. Paul and, you know, smaller schools that were the JV team. And while at the same time, a bunch of my buddies were much better than me playing the varsity team and winning, going on to win national championships, and yet we're all running the football stadium states with weighted vests on and just getting our butts skated out by Herbie. You know?
Right.
So I just didn't have patience. So I after the first year, going into the second season, I decided to go and play a year of junior hockey. Won a national championship there,
wow.
which worked out great. And then literally,
Who was that with?
It was called the St. Paul Vulcans.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. And then right from there, I signed a contract. WHA was about their third year into existence, which was the rivalry with the National Hockey League, and I got drafted by Detroit, and I got drafted by the St. Paul Saints, which were playing right out of St. Paul, Minnesota. And I signed with the Saints.
Wow.
And 20 years old, I'm a professional hockey player, and that was the start.
So you didn't really have that college experience. Like I was at Tulsa for 5 years, so I wasn't leaving early. It wasn't good enough.
Yeah, in hindsight, I mean, if you look back and would you write the story a little different? And maybe that would have been something. I would have stayed in school.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, I've had a great life in the path I've taken.
Yeah. And I was reading one of your quotes about how hockey's kind of changed. It's like every other sport, I think.
Yeah.
It's not as physical anymore. It's not as, I wouldn't say violent, but kind of. It's definitely changed. And when you were younger, was that just part of the game?
Yeah. Well, part of the pro game.
Yeah.
Going up through high school, obviously, you could play physical, and I was one of the more physical players in high school, but you couldn't fight because obviously then you'd be thrown out for the game and a game after. Got into juniors, it was a little more accepted. We would play the major junior A teams out of Canada, which was very physical teams. Of course, if they're playing the Americans, they want to beat up on the Americans.
Right.
And we had to establish ourselves. But yeah, fighting was part of the game there, and I grew up in a neighborhood where street fighting wasn't uncommon, and I used to, unfortunately, however you want to look at it, be involved in that kind of stuff, and so it kind of prepared me. And so when I got into juniors, the fighting became a cornerstone of my game. Yeah. And then certainly it helped propel me through my life.
Is that where the foil started?
The foil started actually my first year pro.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's a pretty funny story behind that one.
So I know when you go in, you probably when you sign with the Saints, there's got to be some hazing, some initiations going on for a young 20-year-old coming in. There's probably some older guys that are part of their. I mean, we did that in the NFL. Yeah. I'm sure you have some good, maybe one good story about what happened to you when you first came into kind of the pros.
The great part about it, and yet still the surprising part about it, is when I signed, we also had three other big tough brothers, the Carlson brothers,
right,
who really the Hanson Brothers and Slapshot are written about.
Right.
So you had four guys that were probably the toughest guys on the Minnesota Fighting Saints team, who were all tight and close together.
Oh, yeah, so nobody's messing
so
with you.
Nobody was going to mess with us, and we watched each other's back. So through my rookie year, none of us got hazed.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And back then it could be pretty torturous, because I was part of a hazing group later on.
Oh, yeah.
When I become the veteran. But
Well, that's what happens. When I went to college, before they kind of got rid of all the hazing,
Yeah.
I was hazed, and then it's almost like a tradition,
Yeah.
and it's never really that bad. Some guys take it to the next level, and that's
Yeah.
why it all got shut off. It was more of an initiation or something like that. I don't know if you know, at Shady Side Academy, John Johnson. Do you know John?
no, I don't.
He was a pretty good hockey player. He was from my high school,
Mm-hmm.
played junior. He's the head coach over at Shady Side Academy now. And he's told me some stories when he first went to
Yeah.
like junior hockey and things like that, some of the hazing stories he had.
Yeah, we used to just call them flat out rookie shaves.
Yeah. I've shaved a few guys' heads in
Oh, yeah.
Minnesota, yeah.
Well, it wasn't only the head that got shaved. There's a lot of other body parts too. With
Yeah.
rusty blades
Right, with rusty blades.
and
That's
no
pretty-
shaving cream.
No shaving cream. That's pretty funny. Probably the worst thing I ever did was I took Coach Turner's son and I taped him up to a chair and put him in the shower while we went to practice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, little Scotty Turner. He's actually a coach now in the NFL, but Norv would bring him to every practice, and he would just annoy guys. And so
Yeah.
myself, Brian Mitchell, Terry Allen, we got in and we said, "Hey, Scotty, come here," and we just taped him up to a chair and we put him under a shower. And Norv goes, "Hey, where's Scott?" And Brian goes, "I don't know. We haven't seen him, Coach." He was in the shower the whole time. So, but I took my sons to all the practices, and they got, like Adrian Peterson used to put them in a box and tape them up.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, Richie Incognito used to
geez.
torture them.
Yeah.
But I'm like, hey, you guys want to come? That's what happens.
Yeah, right. That's great.
Yeah. So then so after the Saints, you went. Where'd you go after that?
Well, it's funny. The Saints folded twice while I was with them.
Right.
Yeah, and so with the Saints, went to the minor leagues, back up to the Saints, back to the minor leagues, back up to the Saints. They folded. Went to the minor leagues. They folded. The team that was their farm team.
Right.
And moved on. I ended up signing with the New England Whalers, still in the WHA. Played a few games with them, and then came out, and then I ended up going to the Detroit Red Wings. And signed with their organization, and so I had the fortune of playing, some with Detroit and Minnesota North Stars a little bit, and so I had a 10-year career that gave me a couple cups of coffee in the NHL, and
Right.
a couple seasons in the WHA, and then had some great times in the minor leagues for 10 years.
So, through all of that, were you married yet? Or
Yeah, I got pretty much married. I got married at 22. Met a girl when the farm team of the Saints was in Johnstown, Pennsylvania.
Right.
And met my future wife to be my first year there, and she was, she God bless her soul, she went along the ride. My first year of marriage, I played for 4 different teams in 4 different cities.
Wow.
And she hung in there for 3 of them, and she said, "I'm going back to Naniglow right outside of Johnstown."
I know where it is very
with you.
well.
Do you?
Yeah. My wife's mother lived in Indiana on a farm, and so her boyfriend, Dr. Lieb, was from that area, Naniglow and all that
really?
up there. Yeah, and
geez.
Evansburg, all that area.
Yeah.
I know it really well.
Well, that's a shocker.
Yeah. So I grew up kind of close to that anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I saw that she was from Naniglow.
Yeah.
So you guys have been married for a long time.
Got married in '77. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Wow. So you're coming on what? How long? My
question.
math is terrible.
Yeah, 45-ish. Yeah,
Wow.
45 years.
That's great. Yeah, we're going on 25, my wife
yeah?
and I. Yeah.
Good for you.
So it's been really good. So I think that's really interesting because one of my things was I took my family everywhere. I played for 7 teams in 15 years, and we traveled. It seemed like every year we were moving, getting a new house, and doing all those things.
Yeah.
And you kind of had that similar. So when did you have kids?
Had kids when I was 3 years later, 25, and trying to think. I was actually at the time with Detroit Red Wings playing for their minor league team in Glens Falls, New York, up near Lake George and Albany and there. So, although my first daughter was born up in Detroit, up in Dearborn, Michigan, when I was with the Red Wings, but literally 3 weeks after she was born, I'm on a plane. I got traded to Birmingham in the WHA, and my wife and child came along, and so we had the same thing. In fact, what I say is in that 10-year span, every professional league that exists in those 10 years I played in.
You touched it. Yeah, you were part of it.
Yeah, so we started out with just a car, then we got the van, then we got the van that pulled the wagon.
Right,
so
right.
Then we finally ended up getting the U-Hauls.
Yeah, we've done all that. We hardly ever flew anywhere. We drove everywhere because it just kept us tighter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's just nice being a family.
Yeah.
And I always try to tell young guys that is, be with your family. Don't because a lot of guys in the NFL bring their kind of friends still around and all that, but they have family and then they'll leave, and then the divorce rate in the NFL is like 85%.
Well, a pro athlete, you get to spend so little time as it is, even with if your family's with you.
Right.
And God forbid, your family's in a different city and you're not there.
Right.
Then why have family?
Right, exactly. Why? That's what I always tell them. Why have family? Because when you're done, they're going to be there for you, and you better do everything you can to get to know them. Because all of a sudden you're sitting in a room and there's these people you don't really know, and you're like, okay, what am I going to do? And it happens to a lot of guys. So you had kids. So what part of where were you in your career when you kind of got approached to be in the movie?
It was literally my first year pro in Johnstown. We had the Carlson Brothers playing, myself there, so you had the three Carlson Brothers, Dave Killer Hanson, and then a whole slew of characters, and this league that we played in, and every game there was a fight or a bench clearing brawl, and a group of characters that were literally characters, which when you talk about how the game has evolved, that's when the unfortunate thing I think about the game today is you just don't have the personalities you had back. And
they're not allowed to be formed. It's almost
and social media kind of clamps it all down on too.
Right.
But anyhow, so we were playing, and one of our teammates had a sister who was a screenplay writer. And
was that Nancy?
That was Nancy, Nancy Dowd. Ned Dowd was playing with us, a Bowdoin graduate, very intelligent kid, was under contract with the St. Louis Blues, and he calls her up one night and says, you can't, you never believe where I'm at, and these guys on the team, and the mills are closing, and this and that, and he's telling the whole story, and she says, well, who owns the team? And he says, well, I don't know who owns the team, and she says, well, so she came and visited for a few weeks and saw all this and hung out like a barfly, here and there, everywhere else. And the light went off, and she started writing a script. And he used to sit in the back of the bus, and we'd see him holding his hand up. And finally, we accosted him and pulled out, and he's recording all this stuff. His activities, he'd send her off the tape. So that script is written probably more based on fact than fiction, and just kind of elaborated a little bit here and there. And so pretty much that summer, the script got picked up. Ned got hired by the studio to go out and start finding actors or teaching actors how to skate, to play these roles. And he had guys like Nick Nolte, Peter Strauss, Donnie Mose, bunch of A-listed actors back then trying for these roles, and they couldn't skate. He couldn't teach them how to skate. And finally, they got so frustrated, they being Ned and Nancy, finally went to the producers and the director and said, why don't you just go back to Johnstown and let these guys try to be themselves. Right. And so they approached us. They would have been in their second season, 76, 77, that they approached us, and one of the brothers got called up to Edmonton, so he wasn't available. So they had the two brothers and myself, because we all lived together. Yeah. And they sat us down in a room like this in front of a table and gave us a couple lines to read. We read them, and there was nothing elaborate about it. And later on, they come back and says, I'd like to be in a movie. Oh, okay, sure. Why not? Yeah, why not? Otherwise, we're just going home and playing softball and drinking beer this summer. Right. Right. And so, as soon as, even before the season then, and we were in the playoffs, we were filming stuff. Yeah, so when you were filming, were there a lot of takes, or did you? Yeah, there was a lot of takes, especially when we started out, because we obviously weren't actors, and we weren't very good at acting. Right. And we got to the point where the director, George Hill, who actually was another Minnesota boy, and didn't know much about hockey, but, great director, Butch Cassidy, Sundance Kid,
right,
a lot of, he finally stopped things and he says, guys, this kind of, something's wrong here. He says, so let's take a different approach. Here's the setup, here's the scene, here's your lines, but what would you guys normally do in something like this?
Right.
And we kind of said, well, we might do this. And I said, well, let's give that a try. And from that point on, he just let us ad-lib as much as we wanted to.
You just had fun with it,
and it just kind of came off smoothly. So the neat thing about it is we became so relaxed, and it was such a joke and fun for us. That's how we came across, and it just, so a lot of the simple takes were one or two because it was like right on.
Right.
But then when you did the things like you're going up into the stands and, we're fighting people up there, that's when it took all day for something.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
That'd probably wear on you.
Yeah.
Wearing skates, climbing over the walls.
Yeah, I mean, we had to be on set, 6 in the morning, makeup, get the foil on, the hockey equipment on, and this and that, and then you just sit there all day long till we finally get
really
on.
ready for you.
And sometimes, 10, 12 hours later, they say, well, that's a wrap. What do you mean? I said, the sheet that we're doing it today, we're supposed to be on. No, we'll get you tomorrow.
Yeah, that wouldn't make you guys very happy.
No. And you couldn't go outside for fear of getting a suntan because they wanted to have the white winter,
Oh, yeah.
Look on you. And
Right.
so there was a lot of limitations to where, 20-year-old kids started getting a little
Was
bored.
it in your off season or was it during the season?
It was right. We had finished the season, and then it was in our off season. So it would have been because we had lost in the semifinals of the championship. We won the championship the year before, and we were actually picked to win the championship this year, and we should have. But I really think we got distracted because we were filming some of it during the playoffs. But then once the playoff season, then it was full bore. Right?
Full bore.
Yeah, April, May, June.
So I always wondered, because it seems like, it's a sports movie, and sports teams are always really close.
Yeah.
Was it like that on set with all the actors and actresses? Like, did you get to know everybody really well, or not?
If you ever look at any of the past footage of Paul Newman when he gets interviewed on the movie, or anything that's written about him, the one thing he says about this movie is this is the most fun he ever had in all the movies he made was because of this.
Right.
And that's what it was. It was, again, you had 20, 21, 19, 20, 21-year-olds who were kind of, even though we weren't the main focus of the film, we made an imprint.
Oh, big time.
And it was the same way off camera. We were farting around and
that's what I was going to ask you. Did you guys pull pranks?
We started pulling pranks.
What was your favorite one? Did you ever pull one on Paul?
Oh, yeah.
Did you really? What'd you do to him?
Yeah. Well, when Paul came into town, Paul liked his beer. Right?
Yeah.
He liked his beer. So
He didn't drink Iron City, did he?
No, he didn't. Actually, he had Coors flowing in.
Oh, really?
It wasn't sold yet in Pennsylvania. So he used to have Coors flowing in that time. He was a big Coors drinker before he turned to Budweiser. So they rented out the team's doctor's house up in Westmont.
Right.
And then he had a room at the hotel where we all stayed at. So they built a sauna in the hotel just for Paul.
Just for Paul.
Assuming he's drinking at night, he wants to get up first thing in the morning.
Get it all
he was
out.
pretty physically fit, but he sweat it all out in the morning. So one night Paul wasn't with us, but we're in the hotel bar and having a few adult beverages and this and that. And I says to the guys, I says, I got an idea, because they were serving popcorn on the bar and got to know the bartender pretty well. And I said, where do you get the popcorn? He said, we got bags of it in the back. He says, really? Yeah. So we snuck into the back, took these huge bags of popcorn, went out to Paul's sauna and filled it with popcorn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we just, shoved, so it was full of popcorn. So we were thinking, this will be great. When Paul hits the sauna, he's going to Never heard a word about it. He didn't say a word. Nobody said anything. Didn't say a word about it, right? So we're thinking, well, geez, did he not take a sauna? Did the cleaning crew get in there? What happened? It didn't work out. So we're doing a night scene up in Latrobe, where the Booster Club bus pulls up and our bus pulls up and we all go running out. We're swapping with the Booster Clubs.
Right.
So it's late at night. We're tired. And again, it's taken so much time between shooting the scene.
Yeah.
So we're, again, popping some beers and this and that. And we say to Paul, again, we like to pull pranks, right? So we're thinking the only people that's going to be there is the camera crew and the director and the writer. That was, because it's like 3 in the morning.
Yeah, it's late.
So we said, hey, Paul, we got a great idea. Yeah, what? He says, let's all take all our clothes off. We'll go running out. And when we go running out, everybody will be shocked because we're bare-ass naked. And
right.
The Booster Club bus are a bunch of people out of town. They're doctors' wives, lawyers.
Right.
And I like that's a good Paul's going. That's a great idea. All right. We hear action on the radio, and the bus comes rolling down. We stop where we're supposed to stop. We strip our clothes off. We go running around. We're jumping around. We're laughing. We're jiggling this and that, and we're looking around. And I swear the entire town of Latrobe was there. Grandma, grandpas, grandchildren, aunts, uncles, moms, dad, the mayor, this and that. And we're looking around. And we turn around, and Newman's up in the window laughing. He says, "Payback's a bitch, boys."
He got you back.
He got us back.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. You can't pull one over on Paul Newman, I guess.
No, you could.
That's awesome. And so, what an experience that had to be for you. Like, and then, I mean, if you think about all the transitions you were going through, and after that, did that every team you had to go to, they had to every guy had to watch that. Every person you played against.
Well, and again, we were 20, 21-year-old kids, had no idea, and they hit the theaters, and back then, movies would go to the movies, they're run, and that was the end of it. You didn't, unless they happened to get on TV years later, but, I think we set the record for F-bombs, so there's no way
no way you were getting on.
But it came out February 77, so we're in the middle of our hockey season. So of course now, all the hockey teams are seeing it, and you're lining up against opposing players, and they're throwing lines at you. Hey, buy a soda after the game.
Exactly.
Toe Blake, and and this and that. But the most fun that came out of it was, again, my style of play didn't lend me to be a favorite for the opposing fans and stuff.
Right.
And so I'm playing down in Dallas after the movie came out, and Dallas hated me to begin with, and the fans, and I had a reputation. So we're skating around, and as usual, the fans in warm-ups are just giving it to me, and this. And I just wouldn't acknowledge them. You go on, and finally I turn. I'm just going to look up, and the entire section had their glasses and the fake nose on, and
they did really.
Hanson Brothers Booster Club, and it just one of those hilarious moments.
Oh, that's awesome.
Catch you off guard.
Yeah, and what a career that's helped you turn into.
Oh, yeah.
You and the Carlson brothers there.
Well, and Steve Carlson, Jeff Carlson was, Jeff in the movie, and then Jack Hanson in the movie was myself and Steve Carlson. So Jeff and Jack were Steve's brother, were big, tough, ornery buggers, and so I took Jack's role. He went to Edmonton. Steve didn't have to fight. Steve wasn't a fighter. He was actually the baby of the group, and he had these 2 other brothers that played on this wing, and anybody touched Steve had to deal with Jeff and Jack.
Yeah.
So Steve just became a goal scorer,
Yeah.
So Steve says, this movie helped me a lot because teams would sign me and they think I was tough, and everybody else thought I was tough, so nobody would bother me. He says, but I was a wimp. But Ted Lindsay, who was the GM of Detroit at the time, right when the movie came out, and Terrible Ted was a tough bugger when he played. He signed me to a 5-year contract, and the slogan of the hockey team that year was the same slogan we had in Slapshot, which was "Aggressive hockey is back in town." And so it was Detroit Red Wings. So it kind of helped my pro career.
Yeah, it kind of helped.
Yeah.
Now, did like those people that were in the movie with you, the other actors? I mean, not the players, but the actors. Did they ever come watch you play anywhere else?
Yeah, they would. There's a few guys like Strother Martin, who
Yeah.
played the old man. He'd come out and see Jeff play because he lived on the West Coast and Jeff played on the West Coast, so you'd see Jeff play, and a couple of the other guys. The guy that played our captain, Johnny Upton, his grandpa actually played for the Montreal Canadiens, and
Oh, wow.
and his name was Alan Nichols, that was in the movie. So he was a big hockey fan. So yeah, those guys that come out once in a while, and but you get back to how did the movie set evolve? We just, again, the hockey players, we got to the point where we didn't have to act. The actors were acting to be hockey players. We as hockey players were just being hockey players. And so we were constantly pulling pranks and this and that, and we just ended up pulling everybody together. And there's the standard was you would film You would film that day. They'd take the film, send them off to New York, get them developed, bring them back the next day. They'd airmail them the next day. And then, so Paul Newman, George Roy Hill, and D.D. Allen, who was the editor and the writer, would sit up late at night and watch what they call the dailies.
Yeah.
Go through and they say, yeah, we like that. Now we better shoot that one over. No, we don't want to use that piece. And so the three of us, Jeff, Steve, myself, heard about this going on. And we said, well, why can't we sit in and watch it? So we kind of snuck in the back door. The next thing we know, we ended up having a whole crew there, and it turned into a big beer party. And that became a regular, and that was unheard of, I heard of afterwards.
Really?
Says, this never would happen. But you guys kind of made this happen, and that just kind of brought it all together.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you finish your movie career, your hockey career, and then you started your family. Where did you go after you were done playing hockey?
When I got done playing hockey, my last season was in Toledo, Ohio. And it kind of goes back to the story. Yeah, I spent a month one night in Toledo. Well, that's how the experience was for me in Toledo. And so when my season was ending, I was pretty banged up. I was pretty disappointed on where the career was going. And I got a call from actually a fella in Minnesota, in St. Paul, who was a good friend of mine and very close to the Gophers program. And a guy I actually played with, Brad Buda, was the head coach. And he called me up and he says, Dave, he says, they're looking for an assistant coach. You want to come back to Minnesota and coach? And I'm thinking, collegiate hockey, the Gophers, an opportunity to go back to school, and an opportunity to go back home.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I says, can I call you back in a week, though? Let me talk it over with my wife. And
the boss, as I always say.
Exactly. So in the meantime, I'm thinking, this is awesome, this is great. And I says, but I'm going to call a fellow that I met along the way who was a GM for me for a couple of years when I was with Detroit. And at the time was the president of the Olympic Authority, managing the Olympic facilities in Lake Placid.
Yeah.
But also had, in his history, was one of the most winningest collegiate hockey coaches of all time, as well as lacrosse for RPI.
Oh, yeah.
And Cornell. I said, I'm going to give him a call and get his advice about collegiate sports and this and that. And he says, Dave, great career move. I had a great time in it. He says, but I can tell you, if you're going to get back into coaching, just like a hockey player, don't plan on staying in one place too long.
Yeah, that's every sport.
Yeah, exactly. He says, but let me give you something else to think about. He says, how about you come work for me? I says, what? He says, yeah, come and work for me. I says, doing what? He says, we run the Lake Placid Olympic facilities here. It's for the state of New York. I'm taking over another ski area that the state owns. It's just a little bit south of us, which is just very close to where you played in Glens Falls, called Gore Mountain. I says, his name is Ned Harkness. I says, Ned, I've skied one day in my life.
Right.
And when I was playing in Glens Falls, and I says, I'll never do it again because I almost killed myself running into a tower skiing.
Right.
He says, you don't have to worry about skiing. I said, well, I do. He says, we'll have you do some PR stuff. You're getting a PR. And I says, and I didn't even talk to my wife about it. I says, if I get a chance to work for you, Ned, absolutely. And that's how much that meant to me.
Yeah.
So I gave up my hockey career and decided to get into a business I knew absolutely nothing about. I had no idea what I was going to do. I even had no idea where I was going to live, that kind of stuff. And just on blind faith and on one man, packed up the family and made a decision to go.
Wow. How long were you there?
I was with the ski area for 7 years. And then started missing hockey. I got a call from him, actually, of all people, one day. He says, listen, I'm not calling you because I don't want you to continue work for me. I want you to stay here as long as you want to stay here. You got a job for me, with me, and actually I ended up managing the place.
Right.
He says, but I got a call from somebody down in Albany that owns a professional hockey team. They're the minor league team for the New York Islanders. They're looking for a GM. They actually wanted me. He says, I'm not going anywhere. I'm the president of the Olympic Authority here. He says,
right.
I said, I recommended you, and they bid on it. They want you to come for it. And
wow.
So it was kind of one of those things where, well, you know what, I got a young family, got an opportunity maybe to move out of the mountains because we were literally living in the mountains in a really rural area. to get into something a little, future for my kids, a better school system, sports, et cetera, and back into hockey.
Right.
Which, is a love that you just don't give up like football,
Yeah. You always got to be in it somehow.
I made a decision and went to work for them.
So then you became a GM.
Yeah.
And then you moved, that was Islanders farm team?
Yeah. It was Islanders farm, and they were playing out of Troy, New York at the time.
Right. And then after that, because...
Well, that's, and just like, I should have, just like all GMs, and you get hired to be fired, right?
Right.
So it was so the Islanders had their farm team, and it was an independent franchise owned in the American Hockey League.
Yeah.
And, basically leased to the Islanders. The Islanders put their team in there. So they were there for 2 years. And then they decided to move to Salt Lake City. I went and talked to Lou Lamoriello of the New Jersey Devils.
Right.
Say, why don't you get out of Utica, come to Albany. We'll go into a new arena, which was a Knickerbocker arena, just got built over in Albany, big, beautiful facility, and recruited them to come in, and had them come in, and right about then, new ownership bought the franchise. It was a local guy in insurance business, and he wanted to name the team the Albany Dalmatians, because he had 2 Dalmatians, and he loved Dalmatians. And he wanted the uniforms to be white with black spots.
Really?
Yeah. Oh. And even went as far as saying, I think we'd like to have doggy ears on the helmets. I mean, this guy, and I'm trying to explain to him, you're new to the business, it doesn't happen this way, So I says, we want to create our own identity for merchandise sale. They said, but we can't be the Dalmatians.
You can't be the Dalmatians.
And so that kind of, waned a little bit. So I created this logo called a River Rat, the Albany River Rats.
Right.
And I unveiled it, to his surprise, got a huge response.
That's awesome.
And he fired me.
And he fired you.
Yeah, he fired me because I did it without his knowledge. He wanted the Dalmatians. The logo went on to be the #1 selling logo in minor league hockey the next season. But
well, sometimes you can't even, they can't see the forest through the trees because they're so caught up in what they want.
Yeah, so it was all about him.
So he wasn't a hockey person?
He wasn't a hockey guy. He was in the insurance business. Very supportive of the community. One of those guys that donated a lot to the community, this and that. But
yeah, that would have not been good, calling them the Dalmatians.
No, I didn't think so.
So then now you're at Robert Morris, and you're at their facility at Neville Island. How long have you been there?
Been there for 20 years. I was there, we opened the doors in '98. I was there during the construction phase, and that through '97. It was a project that was developed by a subsidiary of the Hillman Company. They owned the property down there. And then 5 years into operations is when Robert Morris took it over. So I've been with the facility, since its inception.
Yeah, it's a very nice rink.
Oh, it's great. Yeah,
it's a very nice rink.
Yeah.
So that's an amazing story. And one of the things that we try to tell everybody is we all go through transitions in our life, and you can either look at them as a positive or a negative, and there's something else coming, and you got to enjoy the time when you're somewhere. Just like if you're a GM somewhere, you're probably not going to be there forever, or a coach, but you have to make the best of it.
Yeah.
And for me, that's why I always took my family. That's probably why you always took your family everywhere. And those were the transitions. I think people need to understand, because where I grew up in Armstrong, people don't see, like, if they lose a job, their life's over. There's nothing else I can do, but that's not true. There's a lot you can do. And you probably have more experience and knowledge than they think they do.
Yeah, you just got to be willing to knock on doors.
We're back in the huddle with Dave, and we call this our no huddle drill. So, we're going to ask you some questions and answer them however you want.
Right.
Long, short, we can deal with it later. But one of the ones I wanted to ask you was, who's your favorite current NHL player?
I got to say Sid, because he can do it all. There's not a game that you watch him that he takes off.
Yeah.
He says, I'm going to sit this one out tonight. I'm just going to cruise. He doesn't. And probably because maybe I got more of an educated eye than most of the fans that watch, you can see the little things that he does, and when he does them, it's spectacular. It's awesome. He's a throwback player to the Lemieux and the Gretzky's and some of those, the Howes, those guys that took pride in making sure that every game they give an honest effort and are worth the dollar that fans are paying to watch.
And I really believe I've met him a few times in the locker room, and I was with Billy Guerin, and he came running out of the locker room. Hey, Gus, here's a stick for your daughter. My daughter was a big Penguins fan, and so he's just a genuine person too. And on and off the ice, I think that's a good pick.
And the nice thing you can see, he's a player. When I say he's like a throwback, back in the days, guys played more for the love of game because they didn't get paid a lot of money.
Right.
And you can see that he loves the game and loves playing the game. Money is a side benefit of being able to play the game.
Yeah, you don't ever see him comparing. He's never going to be a holdout. He's gonna go play the game.
Well, you saw he made some salary sacrifices in order to help build some of those Stanley Cup teams so they could sign certain guys.
Right. All right, so then who's your favorite former NHLer?
Former NHLer? It's got to be Gordy.
Yeah. Was he like your idol?
Well, when I grew up, it was the Minnesota North Stars and Bill Goldsworthy, some of those guys that I grew up watching. But we also had, the only game they used to show on TV, because I spent a lot of time in Wisconsin, was the Blackhawks. So of course it was Bobby Hull then. Bobby Hull was the Blackhawks. So, but when I had the opportunity to play a little bit with, but mostly against Gordie Howe, and just stand and watch 50-some-year-old, late 40, 50-year-old man do what he did, and be the kind of person he was, how do you not say that's one of the guys you idolize?
Right. You actually got to play with him too. So this is pretty amazing.
And I got to know him later on in years. We actually did a lot of stuff together. Became pretty good friends. I wrote a book that my wife bought, and I sent one to him.
Oh,
but he did one of the forewords for it.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Great. All right. So, what's your biggest pet peeve?
Pet peeve?
Yeah. I know you got to have some in hockey. I mean,
with hockey, face washing.
Face washing
drives me crazy. I mean, again, back when I played and during that era, anybody stuck their glove in your face, either you dropped them, or you had one of your teammates drop them. Yeah. Now it's face wash. Just everybody can do it, get away with it, and then it's like when it's over with, you just kind of stand and go away.
Yeah, I'm sure that
either call the penalty or let somebody punch him in the nose.
You old school guys probably hate that.
Yeah, it's awful.
All right, so back to the movie. What was your? I mean, you know it in and out, but what was your absolute favorite scene that you love about the movie? You don't have to be in.
Probably the favorite scene was in the hotel room playing with the race cars.
Yeah.
Because, again, a lot of that movie's based on facts. So in real life, I lived on the third floor, the Carlsons lived on the second floor, and the landlords lived on the first floor. And so when we had a day off, we'd push all the furniture away up above my floor.
Right.
We'd put out the racetrack, and we'd spend the afternoon playing with the race cars. So
that's a true
that's
story.
a true story, and that I talked about some ad-libbing there. I did a little bit of ad-libbing there at the end where Steve broke the car and I threw it, so I'm not playing anymore. So that's probably one of the better ones.
No, that's awesome. So this is a fun one that we always like to ask, and who's the most famous person in your phone? If we had to scroll through it and look at it, who would come up and we'd say that's probably the most famous person in your phone?
Well, I still have Paul's number in my phone.
Right.
I can't call him in.
Yeah, you can't call him anymore.
Outside of that, geez, that's a real good question. Probably in the news right now could be Cuba Gooding Jr.
Oh, really? Nice.
Because he got nailed.
That wasn't a good. The last picture I saw him wasn't a good picture.
No, he's a good actor, but he's got some poor choices.
Yeah. Well, I think some of us always have poor choices. All right, so I'm assuming you've seen the movie Longest Yard.
Yes.
So they're both iconic sports movies, right?
Yeah.
So you're 1 and 2. Right. Which one, if you had to go pick one to watch right now, which one would you watch?
Either Slapshot or Longest Yard. I would probably watch Slapshot.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I still laugh at Slapshot.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably because I know a lot of the backstories too, but it's for a good 2 hours, spend good 2 hours guide movie that's got everything you want in it.
It's
violence, vulgarity, nudity.
Right.
Nothing's politically correct about it.
Right. Yeah, you couldn't really get that in a jail with all guys in Longest Yard, right?
No,
but
right.
they had two iconic actors, and
Yeah.
a lot of the same themes, sort of.
Burt Reynolds was one of my favorite actors.
But I always saw those two movies as very similar in a way.
Yeah.
As iconic sports movies. So one of the other things is, I had to ask you this. So, what is foil meant for? Is it meant for fighting, or is it meant for barbecues?
Well, it's twofold. That's the thing about when you're playing in the minor leagues, you find ways to do a variety of things with a limited number of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So we'd put the foil on for the fights and then save them for afterwards when we'd have leftovers. So you just wrap up the foil and get on the bus.
That's awesome. All right, last one. Since I'm from Pittsburgh, played in Minnesota, you're from Minnesota, you live in Pittsburgh now. What do you think the better sports city is? Minnesota?
Pittsburgh.
Or Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I'd say Pittsburgh.
I think the Vikings got to kind of take that step and
Yeah,
win
they just haven't. I mean, I was there during the Bud Grant years with the Purple People Eaters and Fran Tarkin and Joe Cap, and grew up just idolizing the Vikings and just suffering everybody else when they would get that far and then not win.
Yeah, they've had so much talent and so many good teams, and just never kind of got over the hump. It's not even like a Cincinnati or a Cleveland. You know what I mean? It's not. They're a good organization. They're a good franchise, but just never got over. We thought a couple of years ago it might happen, but they just didn't get there.
I mean, St. Paul and Minneapolis are great sports town. People love the Vikings. They love the Twins and the Wild there now. And the North Stars are back then. It's great, avid, colorful fans. You can't get more colorful than a Minnesota Viking.
Right. Ragnar.
Yeah, Ragnar. That's right. Yeah, Lothbrok. But Skull. I mean, that's how I toast now.
Right.
But having lived in Pittsburgh for over 20 years now, I think the fans here are just fanatical.
Yeah.
They're great.
I think so. I've been a Pirate fan, and I've been struggling with that for how many years? Since my dad used to land the glider, and we listened to all the games on his transistor radio.
Yeah.
And, I'm like, come on. It's kind of almost like we got to get back on top of the Pirates.
But still, people still have that little wisp of hope that maybe something will change and they'll be back on top, but they still follow them. They still
and I always say we don't really realize how lucky we are here in Pittsburgh, to have the years of all the great hockey, the football, even the Pirates have given us a glimpse of hope, like you said, and it really is. I've lived in a lot of towns. This is one of the best.
Yeah, it's a fun city.
Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your stories and taking the time with us, and I'll let you know when it comes on.
I appreciate it.
We're going to break the huddle there, and thanks to Dave coming on with us today.